Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, and I would like to welcome you to the other side of midnight. Already in the chat, we have Mikey Sue's 4, who might be joining us later, if he can get away. Alright, there was a slight change in plan. Our guest this evening could not join us at the last minute. These things happen, but that's quite alright because, we have a guest who's backstage and waiting. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. The host, Friday Night Last Call, the co-host of Geeky Geezers, and a co-host and co-creator of Live from Sparkwood and 21 every Tuesday night at 8:30 right here on this channel. Right, Shelly.
Thanks so much. Thanks for thinking of me, bringing me in.
Yeah. I'm glad you can make it.
Well, I wouldn't want to miss this show, especially after the Geeky Geezers we just did. I was pretty fired up, so I could definitely use a little bit of a wind down now. I used a little salty language, didn't I?
I've done that too, so I can't really tell anybody to.
You floored Netter with the unscripted earlier.
Oh,
you dropped the MFer, and she was like, "Wow, I never hear Deleted Scenes use language like that." I said, "Well, he gets passionate too sometimes."
Yeah, I've done a few shows where I've like you said, gotten a little passionate, but and Unscripted is the show where I kind of get to let loose. And hello, Netter. It's good to see you in the chat. Jump on if you feel up to it.
Love you too, Netter.
So, snap. Looks like our guest is here after all. So let's, okay. Great. I got both of you here. Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm 15 minutes to midnight now, so I jumped in, and so I was a little thrown by that.
Oh, okay. So it was a time. It's 12:05 Eastern when we start. No worry, you haven't missed anything. We've
that's
only been
how
on
it
2
goes.
minutes.
Yeah.
See, I'm like making sure I was on time by like, okay, I got 15 minutes. Oh no! No!
Oh
my God, I'm late.
No worries. The good news
is why I always list both Central and Eastern time in everything I say, because I know if you don't do that, someone's going to have to do the math later on.
Man, oh man. So, hold on a second. I'm having some problems with an extension on my browser. Give me a sec. I might have to jump out and jump back in. Hold on.
All right, no worries.
I do. I'll be right back.
Technical difficulties.
It does this shit.
I see how.
Well, it's one of the browser plugins, and it throws everything off on my screen.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah. Now, see, I see where he was coming from, right? If you come in 15 minutes before the stream, these are the kinds of things you kind of work out, right? That's why you do the sound check and everything. So that's fair. I understand.
There we go.
Did that do it?
Yeah, it's like it's called Video, and it's there to control volume, video speed, and contrast, like that. Problem is, when I go into a lobby with it, the entire screen gets shifted to the right.
I get you.
Yeah. So I gotta turn it off, and I'm like, I forgot I had that on. Well, normally I go through my Chrome browser for streaming, so. This time I'm using Firefox. So anyway, anybody in the chat?
We have Netters, we have Mikey Sue's 4, and we've got some people who might be coming by. I usually get a lot of lurkers at the beginning of the show, and then people start to roll in. Kind of depends on the time. And we are starting a little bit late, so that's perfectly fine. It's all good. So we can go on with the show. I'm really glad that I actually have you and Troy here because Troy earlier tonight had some things to say about the Napoleon film, and Gary, if I remember,
you read what
if
I
I understand
said
correctly. Yeah, you have now seen the movie yourself.
Yeah.
Well, Gary,
Not impressed.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten up to speed yet. I didn't see what you had shared, so I'm going to need a little fill in.
I said basically not enough gay sex. I wanted more gay sex.
I mean, if you're going to freelance it, right, go all in.
You know, I like it all in.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, basically I said, look, man, I didn't expect it to be a history lesson because I've watched Ridley Scott's films before. Gladiator is not historically accurate. And
No.
it's got some cool shit in there, but no, it's not accurate. I don't like the way he shoots battle scenes. He's like, I want it to be chaotic. I said, you want battle to be chaotic, but you don't want the audience to be in chaos.
Right.
And they need to be able to see what's going on. But here you've got a Napoleon. Napoleon is like not only like one of the greatest tactical commanders on the field.
Mm-hmm.
He was also very charismatic and beloved by his people. And really a lot of the men in his military loved him and would follow him anywhere.
Right.
And that Napoleon's not in there. They get this boring, banal fucking performance by Joaquin. Everything is subdued. I'm like, why is everybody acting like Keanu Reeves now? You know, it's fucking ridiculous. And then on top of it, there is this bizarre relationship between him and Josephine in the film. I mean, it's really fucking weird. It borders on stalker fetish kind of level shit. And I'm like, this is not what went on between them at all.
Right.
It's like, you know, and I get it. He's all defensive and you know, fuck you and fuck you. But we're seeing a lot of that today with creators. They're getting tired of having to explain, you know, their terrible ideas.
Well, and that's just it. The terrible ideas. I have for years now been, and as many people in our community have been, uptight and upset and railing against people that are given responsibility for continuing a legacy, a franchise, for example, or whatever, that has all this lore, and they just say, well, it's fiction. I'm throwing it all out and doing my own thing. So in other words, you take a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar franchise, flush it down the toilet, and put out something that's in name only, that franchise. And then everyone's surprised when you lose the fans. Well, history, it's even worse, because these were real people that really shaped our world.
And, you know, and basically Ridley is doing the typical thing that we see in a lot of these Marvel and Star Wars projects, which is, well, this film was made for your fans. Well, this film, Ridley is saying, is not made for historians. Well, then why did you pick a historical figure?
Exactly. This who is your audience? And this is what the commenters are all saying. If you take up a franchise, your audience ought to be the fans of that franchise. If it's not, you shouldn't be touching it. And with a historical epic, I was doing Geeky Geezers earlier this evening. I said, if you do a historic piece like this, you're going to have people that are, history buffs, fashion buffs, the fashion of the day, the military tactics, the weapons enthusiasts. All of these different people are going to be interested, and if you're not getting that right, yeah, they're going to be pissed, and they're not going to want to come to your next movie. Now, I'm sure this guy has, twice as much money as God, so he probably doesn't care. But then he also shouldn't be still making movies. He should just retire.
Well, Ridley is one of those guys because right off the bat, I need to say that I have a really huge list of favorite films. It's close to right now about 5,000 movies on the list. And when you get down to the top 20, they are pretty much in order of the, number 1 to about 20. They're all exactly in the right order. Number 1 through 5 are all John Carpenter and Ridley Scott films. That's all.
Sure.
The first 5 are nothing but John Carpenter and Ridley Scott. Now, Ridley Scott is quite capable of making a good period piece. Prime example, his first film, Duelists. I read the book that it's based on. Very good book, but I thought the film was superior. And he can do historical epic stories. And he had no budget for that film. There's a wagon in the film that's used just a multitude of times at different angles or in different dressings, but it's the same wagon. It's the same way Monty Python had the same castle in Holy Grail, just used from different angles.
Right.
Ridley was very clever in what he did. He achieved in his film what Stanley Kubrick did with his period piece from the same year, and which is Barry Lyndon. And he achieved the natural look with lighting. Difference is Stanley Kubrick used stage lighting, whereas Ridley used real, actual exterior lighting.
Sure.
And I consider it the superior film visually. But and it's also a better story. Barry Lyndon's just ridiculous, but Ridley starts out like that, and then he makes a series of films. Alien, goes on to make Blade Runner, goes on to make Legend, and these are all great films. Then he gets to Thelma Louise, and suddenly there seems to be more towards making statements rather than telling stories, and that's where it started. Was Thelma and Louise. I mean, he started showing modern proper feminism with Alien, with Sigourney Weaver's character of Ripley. But later on, he would make things. The Duel is a piece of shit of a movie. It's just so fucking stupid. And he has characters doing and saying things they would never fucking do at that period. But and he used that based on a real situation. It's like, didn't happen like that.
Yeah,
didn't happen like that. And Ridley likes to do that. He likes to create these females that really stand out. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not. And Stephen knows that I've said this before. Whether his movie is awesome or it sucks is solely based on how good the shooting script is. Because he is not a storyteller. He is a director of photography, and that's really all he is. He really knows how to set up his shots, get the lighting, get the look, get the feel. But when it comes down to the story, he's completely reliant on the screenwriter to give him a working script. And if it's not perfect, his movie's going to suck.
If you get Damon Lindelof, you're not going to get a good movie.
It's interesting that you say that, Gary. You just made me think of something that several of us have said many times about Zack Snyder. He is great at visual storytelling, but he can't tell his own story to save his life.
No, it's sort of like if writing were a knife, he couldn't cut his way out of a paper bag.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But he can make that paper bag look really nice if someone else cut it open.
He's a lot like Ridley in that way.
Yeah.
He's very good at the visual aspects. He's terrible at the story aspect. And this is why I get into arguments all the time with people. They get upset. I've had people yell at me. And I'm like, and I don't want to put them down when I say this, but I'll go, well, here, you're looking at it as your average viewer that doesn't know shit about filmmaking and storytelling. Yeah. I'm looking at it from the lens of a storyteller. I'm a writer. I've been writing for 35 years. I understand story structure. I understand arcs. I understand theme. And I understand that plot is a device. It doesn't have to be there. In fact, You can tell a story without a plot, but you can't have a plot without a story.
Excellent point. No, you're
So-
absolutely right.
So you just end up, and that's my frustration. Like people who, I went on a tirade. Did you see it today, Steve? About, again, why I get frustrated with people when they say Deckard was a replicant. I said, people that say this don't understand storytelling.
Yeah.
The only people that stand with that don't understand story structure and the themes. I said in that story, the basic theme is man versus nature, man versus man, man versus self. And who's the man? Deckard. Deckard is the driving force of that story. He's the one that's having issue with what he's doing. He doesn't want to be there, and he's being forced to do these things. And he's beginning to question, and he was obviously questioning it previously because he didn't want to do the job, killing these things.
Mm-hmm.
And for Deckard to be a replicant, then you completely destroy all the themes of the story. They're gone. You throw them out with the baby in the bathwater. You can't have, and again, this is Ridley doing his thing because he's the one who talked about making Deckard a replicant. That's nowhere in the script, and if it's not in the script, it's not in the fucking movie.
Exactly.
It's a rule.
Death of the author.
It's a fucking rule. And so then, because I kind of got into a fun argument with Doomcock about this. And then I realized, he doesn't understand writing and storytelling at all. So I'm just going to enjoy hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And I just gave up trying to argue with him because it's sort of like getting in an argument with a leftist.
Yes.
You've already made up your mind, and nothing I can tell you that will absolutely explain why it doesn't work won't matter because all you care about is the feels.
Right.
Well, I've said this a number of times that the third rail on YouTube is just simply throwing out the question, was Deckard a replicant? And then you're gone for like 3 fucking hours,
And I have zero interest in it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I've heard it many times, and I don't feel that I have anything invested in the answer, except that if you have an answer, it needs to have been in the story. If it wasn't there, if it wasn't on screen, you can't come back later and say, well, that's what he meant. I don't care. Death of the author. If you didn't communicate it, doesn't count. Like they say, if there's no pictures, it didn't happen. If you didn't get it into your movie, it didn't happen.
Well, and also people fail to understand that all a director is an attorney trying to make his case. That's all they are. Hey, John's here.
Yeah.
And by the way, is it Netter's
Network. She's sitting right across from me.
Can somebody share the link with me so I can actually go and subscribe?
Oh yeah,
I'd appreciate it.
You guys have wrenches,
Yeah,
right?
I'll put it in.
Go ahead
I'll put it
and drop the link.
You bet.
Yeah, that'll be great because I want to sub. But anyway, the argument I
Thanks
said
so much,
today is
Gerry.
I said, okay, look, stop and listen to Roy Batty's monologue
Right.
at the end of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I said the first thing he says is, "You people wouldn't believe."
Mm-hmm.
Well, who's he talking to, and who's he
Right.
talking about? When he says "you people," and if he's unaware that Deckard is a replicant, then he's a fool, because that's the one thing to point out is that the makers, you notice in the film, are pretty much aware that they're dealing with a replicant
Right.
right at the get-go. And like J.S. Sebastian's aware of it, and so is Chubby. Quickly, the minute he looks at him, he's like, "Oh my God, you're replicants, you illegal."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's Roy Batty, who's equal in intelligence to those who made him, right?
Yeah.
Isn't aware that Deckard's a replicant? That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And then his entire point of what he did at the end is thrown out the window again, baby in the bathwater,
Right.
because he's not talking to a human at all. He thought he was, because he says, you people wouldn't believe. But let's go back even a few moments before that. When Deckard is hanging there, so many people miss what happened, what's going on there. There's actually a war going on between him and Batty. And Batty is winning. And he looks down at him. That's what it's like to be a slave. It's a hell of a thing to live in fear. That's what it is to be a slave. And Deckard looks at him and nobody caught this. He spits it at Batty as he lets go.
Mm-hmm.
With his last breath, like Ahab, I spit my last breath at thee. He spits at Batty, and that is what saves him. When he spits that loogie at him, Batty's hand zooms out and grabs him because he understood that.
Yeah.
And he connected with it. He goes, now you understand how I feel. I can share my last moments with you. And he saves him. And he throws him up on the roof and does that beautiful soliloquy that he pretty much wrote himself.
Yeah.
And, but when he says, you people, that's 2 times now. Why would he do that if he was just another replicant?
Right.
It's dumb.
And, okay, so, bit of a straw man, but I'll play the devil's advocate. People will say, well, he didn't know. He didn't know that he wasn't.
If he didn't know, he's a fool.
Well, okay, true. But I would also
at least
argue
as intelligent as the people who made him, the scientists.
But I would also argue then that's not really relevant because the writer knew, and the writer needed to communicate it and
wasn't
didn't.
in there.
Exactly.
It wasn't in there. But still, even going even further, structurally, again, the whole theme of Deckard's story arc is thrown out like the baby with the bathwater if he's a replicant. Because
actually, you realize then what the argument you're actually making is you have 2 choices. Either this was a well-written story or he was a replicant.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways.
So and it's really, that is the only story in there.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, the only theme that really resonates in that story is that theme of his struggle. There's no other theme in the film. And so I just tell people, look, we didn't get the full script because, Perenchio and Yorkin were at war with Ridley. They kept firing him, and he couldn't shoot the whole script. There's a whole scene with Mary that, was staged. She was cast. It was, what's her name? Nelligan.
Stacey Nelkin.
Wife. Yeah, Stacey Nelkin. That's Barry Bostwick's woman. And, she was supposed to be found by Deckard later in a closet. She just expired. He didn't have to kill her. He had to deal with all these different things, and it was a war making that film. And I think that you couldn't get a better film than what we got. And because of
unfortunately, we ended up getting 4 different films.
Can you imagine if the effects were just even an ounce cheaper looking?
Yeah.
That film wouldn't have resonated the way it does. It is the look of the film that saved that film. Yeah, it's one of the few times I absolutely agree with Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, it's like, what is that? The joke I made today. When I agree with Harrison Ford, it's always Blade Runner. Because he said Deckard being a replicant is stupid.
Yeah.
And that's why Ridley didn't do 2049, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
Because that argument started up when they were drinking. And it was even mentioned in an article that old argument opened up. But they were just chumming around laughing about it. No, they weren't. Harrison Ford wasn't going to work on it if that was the direction they were going to go. He's like, I'm not going to do that again. Just don't want to go there. And so Ridley Scott was moved to executive producer, and they brought in a new director, which is the French guy.
Yeah.
And my problem with the 2049 film is it feels connected, but it doesn't feel genetically connected because the DNA is not there. He chose different color spectrum. He used too much not of the same city. You needed to feel the city of Los Angeles the same way you did with the first film. And they needed to connect with that visually, and they didn't. There is this almost clinical feel to his Villeneuve's film.
Could that be because could that be though because it's being told not from the point of view of the human Deckard, but the replicant? I forget the guy's name.
I don't think so. I think visually, you need to have that visual connection, and it's part of the reason why so many of us Legacy fans had problems with it. But I still do accept it. I liked it. I liked where it was going. And if I were to see an ongoing storyline, I'd want to see what was used in the film with the ongoing revolution that was about to happen, a revolt.
You know what, Steven?
And
I like
could
this
care
guy.
less about
He and I
Black
think
Lotus.
alike.
Yeah.
I didn't like Black Lotus. I didn't like the comic book series they did recently, in the last few years. Two of the guys, Andy Schmidt and another guy from IDW, friend of mine, we were going to approach, and this is one of the heads at IDW, not like just a lackey.
Sure.
We were going to work as a team. We tried to reach out to Alcon Entertainment. This is IDW reaching out, and we wanted to do the new Blade Runner, and we wanted to oversee it. Never responded to us. These are guys that are heads of. One of them moved on to be head of Transformers G.I. Joe for Hasbro, and Alcon Entertainment wouldn't respond to us because they had their own idea and they wanted to go the neo-feminist way, and it turned me off. And everybody's like, "You go check it out." Fuck you! I don't have to check the goddamn thing out. I love old feminism. I don't like this new shit. It's fucking weird. It goes against everything I was raised to understand and accept and agree with. Ryan Gosling really didn't do. No, he did a great job in that film.
He's good. Yeah.
No, I got to tell you, everything in that film I enjoyed. The only part I didn't like was I thought the uncanny valley wasn't there with Rachel. I didn't like that, and I'm friends with Sean Young.
I see. Sometimes with the bad CG, I give them a pass if you know it's not supposed to be spot on. I think they didn't
distract you. It was distracting.
I get that. When I looked at that, I'm like, well, it's not supposed to look right. So if they don't get it right, that's fine,
Yeah, the only thing that Deckard said that they got wrong was her eye color. I don't know if that's true, but it was the explanation he gave. I had problems with that, and I didn't like the replacement for Tyrell. That dude was too fucking weird. And I don't know if he was forced to act that way or what, but I disliked that character. I completely disliked it. They should have had somebody from Tyrell, like his niece, the real niece, and then they could have just hired Sean Young, because she could have played that niece, because she's based on the niece and she's the right age. But I don't know.
Oh yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah, hadn't thought about that.
I find a lot of it was just weird, some of the choices they made, but I still thought that the story was compelling. I love the Ryan Gosling character. I'm still at a debate if he actually dies at the end, even though you get the idea that he died, but we don't really know. We don't know. And they were planning to do a sequel. And if they're going to do a sequel, it'd be crazy to do the sequel without Gosling. Question for the panel: did Gerry come in?
Con Sarnit,
John
Wolf, and I don't have that clip.
John, I shit on John so much. This is his one opportunity to get back on me.
Seems fair to me.
My favorite thing with John is when I will say something and he'll just go, and his head drops, and he just shakes his head because he's like, "God damn it!"
I do think, and to what Mikey is saying about CG these days, we just did a piece from last month about the studio, the practical studio closing up, and how we feel like practical effects are going away in favor of CG. That
I
isn't
hope
even.
not.
I do too. I agree with you 100%. I keep saying, right tool for the right job. CG is great for some things, but it's no replacement.
You shouldn't even notice it.
Right.
It should be so blended in with the practical effects you don't notice it. Prime example of really great use of it, but a complete waste of use of good practical effects is the Demeter.
Which I have gotten on DVD. I haven't watched yet.
I was so excited about this movie and practical effects, and you've got a goddamn short story. The chapter is a short story, and the best thing to adapt for a movie is a short story.
Sure.
It's the greatest thing to adapt into a film. So I'm like, yes, this is going to be fucking great. It's going to be, and then they fucked everything up and just made it terrible.
Yeah.
And had the dumbest fucking ending. Dumb. Just such a moronic ending.
And
it broke
Bill
my
and I
heart.
are supposed to be reviewing that, and I've just been pushing it back and pushing it back. We were talking about reviewing that movie back before it even came out in theaters.
Yeah.
Me too.
We were going to do it.
I was just waiting and waiting and waiting to see it. And then I started hearing rumbling from people that I consider, think like me, and really pay attention to storytelling. And they were like going, man, they really screwed this up. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then I saw the movie and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I see what they did. Yeah, this is dumb. Oh, this is bad writing. It's just you really had to go out of your way to fuck that story.
We can't seem to get anything out of those studios. The multiple attempts at their dark universe or whatever. It's like, guys, you don't even understand your properties, and you're trying to build a shared universe.
Don't get me started on The Invisible Man. I thought that was. People are like, oh, it's a great movie. I said, let me get this straight. So he had to sit exactly in that position and have the utensils exactly held a certain way in his hand for her plan to work out. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
That if at that exact moment, it had to be exactly at the right moment, that he had to be sitting in the chair a certain way, holding utensils a specific way for her plan to work at the end. For everything. She's been planning this for him to be sitting exactly in that position, holding his utensils exactly like that for it to work. And I'm like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. And I watched one idiotic reviewer after another raving about it, and it made its money. And this is why I just took a shit on Blumhouse the other day. I said, he's another one of those fucking James Cameron types that it claims to be a male feminist, and there's no such thing. Yeah. If a male claims to be a feminist, you're looking at a potential sex offender. I guarantee you that they're using gender politics to get laid. And James Cameron's one of the worst. He's a womanizer. Terrible reputation. Cheating on women. He's a horrible human being. And so I just don't like James Bloom. People can talk till they're blue in the face. It's not like he hasn't done good stuff. I know he's done some good stuff I've enjoyed. But the fact is, I think he's a tool. And I don't like people like him. And I don't think they're creative. And The Invisible Man is an insult to H.G. Wells.
Agreed. I agree with you 100%.
And this actually was something that I did want to bring up while I had Gerry here, is you have the campaign coming up for Vindicated. We're finally getting this one off the ground. Since
it's got a gay soldier doing a lot of gay sex in the military. Wants to,
besides that,
continue doing the gay sex in public.
Mm-hmm.
Gay sex.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. No, it's my graphic novel. I started it 10 years ago, and I was inspired to write it. It's probably going to be the best thing I ever create. I've won awards for a lot of the stuff I've done. I'm the artist for Dale Dye, the guy behind Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, The Pacific, and the forthcoming movie about the B-17 pilots. That's Dale Dye. He's my boss. I've worked for Tom Hanks. I've worked for a lot of people. And I'm very good at my stories. And when I came up with that idea, I wanted to write a story about a guy who is because I'm like, how would Batman or the Punisher exist in the real world? And the only way you could do it is if you were somebody trained at the level of a tier 1 operator. And if you guys don't know what a tier 1 operator, that is the top of SOF, or Special Forces, Special Operations Forces. And these guys directly fight terrorism. They go in. They're the ones that are sent in to take out levels. And you got a lot of different tiers. But tier 1 is the best trained for doing that kind of stuff. And they're sent to capture a target in a Afghan village. And it's a co-op mission with Afghan Special Forces. And in the process, there's an ambush, and an IED is set off right below a building, and it blows his leg off. Cuts right through it. And leaves him with one leg, and he's sent back to the States to recover, goes through this process of, it's called the med board process. It's a nightmare for soldiers. And I mean, I've even seen it used as a weapon against soldiers to get them to stay in line. It's like, well, if you need to make a claim for any injuries that you've got here during deployment, you can't leave immediately. Everybody else is going to go home. You're going to be stuck here while you're processing this. And then when you go back to stateside, and it went from being something that should take days to maybe a few weeks to now months to even years. These soldiers' lives and careers are put on hold. And that's what happens to our main character. But what we find out in the story is this isn't an accident. And we're not even sure, and I'm not even sure as the writer, because I'm not sure where I want to go with this in the next book, is was his injury even planned? Because what it is there's a organization within the U.S. government, it could be NSA, I'm not saying who it is, and they want to use him in the war on drugs, the real war. And they want to basically create a Mission Impossible kind of team. This team is outside of the questions and answers of the CIA. They are, if they get caught, they're on their own, but they're fully funded. And that is a plan down the line, but we don't know that yet. When you read this first book, all you know is there's this guy in the shadows that says, even if he passes the test, he fails. Do you understand me? And this is what this guy says to his therapist. And his therapist says, yeah, you're making it pretty clear that, you're threatening me if I don't fail it. Got you. And he gets put into the med board process, and which is just frustrating. So he ends up going out and beating the shit out of criminals. And he, first time it's a pure accident, but the adrenaline rush he gets from it takes him back to, and you get this thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Combat junkies. There are guys that just really love the adrenaline. Now, I met these guys. I've known a few of them that love the adrenaline of combat. They know the risk, and that's what makes the adrenaline pump so much. And so did we go pink? Did you just change it to pink? It just, all of a sudden my screen blinked and it was really bright pink. But anyway, so he goes out and he does this, and he's like, man, that felt so good. I want to do that again. And he stops a robbery at a convenience store. But in the process, he beats this guy so severely that the guy who is being robbed is begging him to stop. That's how brutal he is with this guy, that he stops from robbing him. And he's like, please stop, you're killing him, And he starts doing this, going out at night. And as he does this, he becomes aware that society is reacting to what he's doing. He gets called the Seattle Vigilante. And he realizes he's having an impact on people. Not just, he's having an impact on crime, criminals, but society in general. And he realizes, I really need to rethink what I'm doing and how I'm doing this. And he comes to the conclusion, I've got an idea. And so he writes a preamble and sends it to the local paper. And in it, he says, I'm not going to be like Bernie Getz sitting on a subway waiting for a crime to take place. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find these people. And I'm not going to just go after Billy Bob, the local pot dealer. I'm going to go after the suppliers and the manufacturers and the people funding it. I'm going to go find them. I'm going to work my way into a vein all the way up to the heart, and I'm going to cut the heart out. I'm declaring war here, real war. People are going to fucking die. And that's what he sends to the newspaper. And the police start a task force. And the funny part is the cop that heads up the task force, Frank Tedesco, he knows it's him. He gets a list of all the guys that have just recently come to the VA that are top SOF. And he's got him. This is my guy. This is him. And he goes to confront him, question him, throw him off balance over at the VA. And then John completely deflates him when he comes out from behind the desk with a leg missing and he's in a wheelchair. And at that point, our detective writes him off. And, I know it's a mistake. Even John knows it. And he did it on purpose. And it's going to come back to burn Tedesco in the ass later. That's in the next book, not this one. In this one, he never figures it out because he already figured it out. And then he said, oh, it can't be him because he's missing a leg. And so John keeps doing what he's doing. And he's working towards something. And then there's also a prologue that tells you of an incident that goes unnoticed by anybody. And it's totally connected to everything. And in fact, it's why the main villain, and I don't want to tell who the main villain is, because you have a guy that you have a what do you call him, a thug that works for the main villain.
Mm-hmm.
But is that main villain the actual villain? And I leave that as a question at the end of this book because I want to end with the fact that his main focus in this book was stopping crime, stopping these drug dealers. But in the end, he ends up finding out that there's sex trafficking going on with women and children. And he gets drawn into that instead of focusing on the drugs. The drugs are a side thing because he realizes the real money with this, like it's a biker gang that he's dealing with mostly, and mercenaries that they're hiring, mercs, and they're trying to fight him. It's a little ground war inside the city. You're having these little firefights, and he's taking bad guys out, just killing them left and right. And it leads to a real funny scene. My girlfriend really loved it when she read it because in real life, my drill sergeant says, "Hey, man, if you feel cornered and you can't shoot your way out, go grenade bowling." And so I use that in the book. He's like, he's trapped by these mercs, man. He's cornered. And he's like, he just starts throwing grenades at him and kills him. Because they're all in there with these meth. It's a meth manufacturing building. And so there's a lot of turgid, versatile chemicals in this place. And so he just blows up the entire lab. And he survives, leaves the place, gets the information he was looking for. And that's what he's doing. He's killing these guys, taking their money, because that's how he funds everything. That's how you avoid getting captured and caught. No paper trail. Batman would get caught. If you watch Christopher Nolan's, he would get caught. And he does in the film. That reporter, or I can't remember who the guy was, but he knows Wayne Industries pays for the Batmobile and all this other equipment. So that's clearly Bruce Wayne. And he's going to out him. Well, of course that would happen. He had a paper trail. You got to do things without a paper trail. So his weapon supplier in the book is a guy that he's an actual arms dealer, small time arms dealer. And he catches him and he tells him from this day forward, you don't work for anybody but me. If I find out you're selling arms to anyone else, I'll kill you. If you let anybody know that I'm buying arms from you, I will kill you. Past that, we can be buddies. We can laugh, joke, but just remember, you fuck this deal up, I kill you. You just go away. Nobody will ever find you. And that's what he does. He's like, his money comes from criminals. So there's no paper trail. The guns are all illegal. Every bit of equipment he has is gotten through illegal means. No paper trail. And that is how you avoid ever being caught. Because the minute you create one purchase, legit purchase, they will find you. And he's taking out these criminals left and right. What do you guys think? Any questions?
When do you start crowdfunding?
Tuesday. We launched. See, I had actually tried this back 10 years ago, and we kind of successfully had a campaign, but all the money went to the writers. And then I fired the writers because what they wrote pissed me off. I'm like, you guys did this all wrong. So I had to go back, rewrite everything.
Yeah.
Threw out 2 chapters that I drew, and I only kept 3 chapters. Currently, you can look at 3 chapters from the book. And the rest of it's all new material that I went back to the original idea, my original story, and I used that as the basis. What is the driving, because they tried to change, the writers tried to change why John's doing what he's doing. threw that out the window. No, John's doing it for this reason. And then I explained to people, like I had a military buddy of mine that got mad at me because he wanted to work on the book with me. And and he kept trying to say, well, that wouldn't be why he does this. I said, look, motherfucker, I may base John off of 2 other people. He's based on 2 soldiers I knew, special forces. But his attitudes, his outlook, his sense of humor is all me. The funny, fucked up things that he says in the book, and he does say funny, fucked up shit in the book. He throws a knife into a guy's subclavicle artery, just goes right under the clavicle and goes up there and he goes, oh man, it is not your day. He says, oh man, you've got maybe 6-10 minutes. You're going to bleed out, man, lose consciousness. And he says, unless, and then he pulls the blade. He goes, I do that. Now you got 3 minutes.
Right. Because that's the thing that nobody ever realizes is in these movies where everybody can just like casually take a bullet to the shoulder, but you got like arteries and shit in there. And there's a movie, there was that TV show. I caught an episode of that Australian thing, that Mr. In Between. Yeah. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. And there's an episode where he kills a guy by shooting him in the shoulder because the guy bled out because the artery got hit.
Yeah.
You know, and he's
just, you can get an artery in any major limb got, there's an artery. And then there's arterioles. It's like the oxygen moves one way and then the venous part of the body moves it back towards the heart. And I tell people all the time, my combat medic training is very useful when I'm doing a lot of this writing and explaining how things happen in the human body. Because I said something the other day, my girlfriend was like, I don't want to know why you know that. Because I told her, I said, it takes approximately 20 minutes for somebody to die from their throat being cut.
Yeah.
She goes, 20 minutes? How do you even know that? And I went, it's just something you learn. I've dealt with arterial bleeds in the neck, and I got to tell you, man, in movies, it shows them they just fall to the ground. They're just fucking dead. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. It takes 20 minutes for the heart to stop. And it's crazy. And I throw a lot of stuff in there every once in a while. Like the knife scene is definitely from my medical background. Oh, man, I hit your subclavian artery. Oh, you're in trouble. Unless I do this, now you're even more trouble. And also the 2 little girls, because he goes to this location because he's heard there's sex trafficking. Okay. So, and he's looking for a guy's daughter. He gets there and he finds 2 girls. Both girls are my daughter at different ages. I just wanted to draw my daughter in the book because I love drawing my daughter. And so Zoe thought that was cool that she got to be both little girls that he rescues. And every single veteran that read, and I've had a lot of veterans read this scene, when he walks out with the girls and tells them to close their eyes because he doesn't want them to see all the dead bodies that he just murdered.
Yeah.
And he says, and they're afraid to close their eyes. And he says, don't you worry, I've got you. And every vet's like, oh man, that hit me in the gut with like a sandbag. And I'm like, yeah, it's meant to, because that's how every soldier I ever served with. I know there are shitheels. I've met a few in the military, but for the most part, soldiers are honorable creatures. It's our nature, especially infantry. It is made up of guys that are there because they want to serve. They want to serve society. And I saw somebody today posted something, by the way, it just really annoyed me. It's a friend of mine. She's a very lefty kind of person. And she posted this one thing, we need to stop looking outward and look inward to see what we've done. And I said, people that are reading that have given their lives serving this country. I know you didn't. So it's easy for you to say shit like that. But when you say stuff like that to people who've actually served this country with honor and distinction, you are basically shitting on really good people. And that's why people should stop fucking saying that. Because this country is noble in its effort. I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the people. And of course, and I tell people that's what the flag represents. That flag doesn't represent the United States government. It represents every American. That flag doesn't represent those people in Washington. The red, white, and blue stands for specific things. The red for the blood that's been shed for this country by every individual, whether they're soldiers or citizens that fought, citizen soldiers. A lot of blood was lost for this country, and that's what the Reds for. They don't think about that. These leftists don't give two shits about that, and that's why I don't like them. I don't like commies. I don't like socialists, and I don't like leftists. I love my liberal friends, the ones who are what we refer to as blue dog Democrats. I love them.
Classical.
I
liberal.
love them because I'm technically still a classic liberal because I believe in social programs and taking care of the poor. Okay. I left the Democratic Party in the 80s because I saw what was happening and I didn't like it. But I always joke and refer to myself as a Hubert Humphrey Republican. And Hubert Humphrey was not a Republican, he was a Democrat.
Yeah.
But by today's standards, he'd be a Republican. Unless he pulled a Joe Biden and just went that way because that's the way the wind went.
Well, I'm in on this book. I'm definitely in, and I think everybody that hears about it's going to be too. I see some comments in the comment section here. Mike's in.
Yeah, appreciate hearing that. Basically, I launch on Tuesday. It launches at 7:00 in the morning. It's going to be launched on fundmycomic.com.
Okay.
And I am looking forward to launching it. We haven't launched it yet because I'm such a stickler for details. And I'm like, am I saying enough? Did I say enough? My buddy, he comes in and he like criticizes me last night, and he's like, well, you're kind of self-deprecating in this one joke here, and you should do that. I'm like, don't tell me how to fucking be funny. I've been funny back while you were eating Captain Crunch in front of the TV as a grown man doing stand-up comedy. I know how to do it. I just, that's my humor. And here's how I look at that. If that person's going to have a problem with my humor right there, they're going to have a problem with my humor later when they read the book. And they're probably never going to be the customer. I want people who are interested in my humor and in my storytelling and this kind of storytelling. They're the only people I want to pitch to. I don't want to pitch to people who are iffy or weird, because like people who don't like me, because there are people out there that don't like me. Some of them, they earned not liking me because, as you know, I could be a dick. And if you push the buttons on me, I will fucking go off on you. And I've made people's lives miserable. Just fuck with them. And my girlfriend's gotten a taste of it with even with Call of Duty, man. This is just another example of what kind of dick I am. I get into Call of Duty and I get a fucking idiot on my team and he team kills me. I will ruin his fucking game until he quits. And I will follow him to other games. And what I do, I kill him twice, but you can't kill him after that because I play hardcore. After you shoot him twice, you can never shoot him again. So what do? I constantly run up, wait for them to start shooting, then I run in front of them and let them shoot me again. They kill themselves. And I'll just keep doing that.
Funny.
Or I'll start throwing like flashbangs to draw attention and he'll get shot. I'm just a fucking devil when it comes to it. When I focus in on somebody that's pissed me off, I just torment them. And it's fun. I derive a great deal of pleasure from fucking with people. And I think that's the nicest way I fuck with people. But I've like really messed with people in their lives after they did something that I thought was egregious. They went too far. And so, prime example is my divorce and custody battle with my daughter. And how did I fuck with them? I didn't do anything. I let them get mad at me and I would egg them on. I would just like tell them, well, I'm just not going to respond to you. I would tell them that. And I would say little things to them that would just infuriate them to where they would just even get worse. And so by the time we got into court, the judge hated these people because of all the shit they did to me. And of course, I'm technically really innocent because I never did anything other than egg them on to go ahead and attack me and do things. And boy, they did. A friend of mine once said, if you're going to go into a custody battle and divorce at the same time, He says, "You better be prepared to have anything said about you." And I went, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, the worst thing you could ever imagine somebody saying about you, they will say." And I went, "You mean?" And he goes, "Yes, they'll say shit like that. You know it's a lie. They know it's a lie, but they're out to win and they're out for blood." And I went, "Oh." And what I learned in the custody fight with my lawyer would get so frustrated with me because I wouldn't fight him. I'd bend like the reed in the wind, and then I would just
Yeah.
snap back, and they would just get madder. The more they would do, and the less and less that I would do to react to them, it just exacerbated what they were doing, and they would make claims. Well, he did this. He was doing drugs. I remember that one. That was one. I said, "Oh, whoops. If you make an allegation during a custody battle of drug abuse, you have to be tested too." I passed my test because I don't do
Oh.
drugs. Never have. They failed, every single one of them. And I'm just telling you, you got to be smarter than your enemy. And that's the problem with many of the wars that we go into is we love to hit and mass, but we're not smarter than our enemies anymore. We don't even try to be.
Yeah.
And it's led to a lot of problems. We fight our wars in the news,
Yeah.
and that's a terrible way to fight a battle. Tecumseh Sherman said, "You have to be willing to do worse than your enemy." They won't do that now, not publicly. They're afraid to. What did he do? He burned Atlanta. World War II, we bombed Dresden. We were part of that whole plan for the bombing of Dresden. Had to happen. The 2 atomic bombs going off, planned. Truman knew what he was doing. He knew that Japan wasn't going to surrender. They kept lying and playing games, and they were building up their forces in the mountains. And they were going to go to the mountains and fight to the last man. And our commanding officers told the president, if we continue this war and we do what they're going to do, we're going to lose millions. They're going to lose millions. And so he decided it's better to hit them with a bomb and then hit the second bomb. Because the second bomb, very simple. You hit them with one bomb, they'll go at the fluke, right? They had that one bomb. You hit them with the second bomb, it tells him, oh, they've got more. This is bad. We need to surrender. And that's why they surrendered. It was ugly, it's brutal, but Japan was going to cost the lives of millions of men and women and children if we hadn't done it. And in dropping the bombs, they lost thousands. That's how you fight a war. You have to be willing to do worse than your enemy. But they don't do that anymore, not publicly. They hide all that shit.
I've commented on exactly that, and I've pointed because a lot of people that don't study history don't understand. So I point them to science fiction. There was that episode of Star Trek where you had these 2 planets fighting a war where they didn't want to destroy anything, so they'd just walk into the chambers.
They'd walk in and commit suicide.
And so they were millions of people dying all the time for generations and generations until I think Kirk, breaks the Prime Directive and says, "Okay, now your computers don't work anymore. Now you have to fight." And live with the casualties of war. And this is what I point out to people, when they talk about, well, this happened and that happened. It's like, yeah, that's war. You don't want war? Then you better have peace.
That's the whole thing.
That's the way it goes.
And it's always what, going back to Teddy Roosevelt said, talk softly, but carry a big stick.
Yep.
And talk softly means diplomacy, and the big stick is the military.
God, we do the exact opposite now. We talk loud and we don't do anything with our stick.
We beat our chest. Biden's notorious for that shit. And that's why nobody's afraid of him. They know he won't back up anything he says. They were terrified of Trump.
Yeah.
Because he was a renegade.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, I don't want war. I want to avoid it. But don't think for a second I won't kill you. I won't have somebody go over there and kill you. And that's why people were afraid of him. And they should. People, what it was that my dad said, look, I want you to respect me, but often you have to be afraid of me before you learn respect. And I feared my dad. And I think that fear and respect do fall in line with each other. People go, well, you respect. I went, no, you're talking about something else.
Yeah.
The respect I'm talking about is absolutely being afraid to fail somebody. That's the kind of respect I'm talking about. And in the military, you have this thing where your greatest fear is fucking up and getting the guy next to you killed.
Yeah.
And that's what drives almost all of us. It's like an absolute, we're terrified of screwing up and hurting somebody, causing the harm to somebody else. And that was my big fear. But as far as carnage, all the carnage I saw was as a civilian, as a paramedic. And I was a paramedic up in Seattle. That's why Seattle is the center of the story for Vindicated. Because I loved Seattle. I loved living up there. But back in 1989, and you'll read about it. There's articles, and there's videos on YouTube about it. 1989, a gang, it starts with the C, letter C. I'm not going to say the name. They fucked with Rangers, Army Rangers. Army Rangers.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, I heard this story. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll come see you. And they showed up, and a battle took place. Now, what's interesting is in the news articles and everything's been cleansed. The police reports were cleansed. People were killed in that battle, that firefight. Not the Rangers. Okay, it was the gang got killed. And they didn't want this out there because the military, it would be a black eye for the military in one way. They saw it in the news. Again, it's always about the news. And but these Rangers went over there and they fucking showed these guys, you don't fuck with us. And never happened again. But that was the seed that got planted in my head for Vindicated, because I'm like, that's the kind of mindset that he has to have in taking these guys out, and he's killing these guys. I'm not gratuitous in my violence, and by the way, the covers are in color. The interior artwork is meant to look very noir. It's black and white. I tried color, and it just I don't feel it works. I don't think color looks right in the book. I just don't. And I'm not the only one who said it. When other people go, God, man, you're stark black and white art, because I'm very much about stark shading and stark light. I learned that from Mike Mignola, to be honest with you, back in the 80s. When I first saw him, that blew my mind. I'm like, I fucking love the way he draws. And I already kind of drew like that. So I'm like, I can move into this direction, because I left hatching. I don't do very much hatching. Hatching is for shaping. When I'm using hatching, it's usually for the sky or for something else. When it comes to shadows in my artwork, I'm doing it to make it stark. You don't see a little bit of the weapon going into the shadow. You just see the part that's sticking out of the shadow. I don't want to show what's in the shadow. And that comes from years of, Frank Miller too drew that way. Frank Miller and Mike Mignola had a huge impact on me in the late 70s going into the 80s. And before that, it was Carlos Garzón and Bernie Wrightson, and I just forgot his name. He did Empire Strikes Back and Blade Runner graphic novels, and I can't think of it right now. Al Williamson. Just an amazing artist. And when I was growing up, I was like, this is the guy I want to grow up to be like. I want to draw like Al Williamson. And Frank Frazetta impacted me too, because I like the way he did his shading.
Discipline and respect. My parents' firm discipline helped all 4 of us kids respect as well as love them.
Yeah. People treat it too much like getting spanked as abuse, and I'm like, man, I've experienced abuse, and that ain't it.
Yeah.
I'd take a spanking any day of the week. Getting wrapped upside the head was where I drew the line. I'm like, shouldn't be striking me in the head. And I would get pissed at my dad when he would do that. And I took it out on him later when he was an adult and I became an adult. It's like one day I said, I don't know how you did it, man. If I said something stupid, that one knuckle, this one right here, he would do this quick thing like that, and he would find that nerve plexus on either side of my head that comes out on the foramen. It's called the oh, I just forgot the name of it. There's a little hole there, foramen, and the nerves come out, and he would hit that plexus, and it would just shoot like lightning. He goes, "I'll never hit you like that." I'm like, "The fuck you didn't." Everybody wants to paint that picture of being the perfect dad. And I think that's what my daughter appreciates with me is she knows I'm telling the truth because I will often make myself look like a dick, an asshole, and I don't care because I'm just human. And I'm like, yeah, I fucked up here, I fucked up there, did a lot of stupid shit, things that at the time I still stand by my decision making, but when I look back on it now with that, hindsight 2020 thing, I'm like, yeah, I wish I had done something else, but it is what it is. And you learn that in the military. Just accept things as what they are. It's like you can't go back and change a goddamn thing. It is what it is. You just got to learn to live with it. It's like, do you learn to forgive yourself? I'm like, I don't think it really even falls into that. We just accept that's just the way it is. And I accept my imperfections, that I'm not always perfect. I mean, poor Steven, he's seen me when I lost my shit on some people.
Oh, yeah.
You were there. You were there that day. And those guys won't come on the show anymore. They're afraid of me. And I don't want them to be.
They deserved it.
They did. They raised my ire. There's a thing that I have, and I've gotten on Keith about it, my partner. I'm like, when I'm talking or somebody's talking, don't do show and tell. That's rude.
Show and tell?
Don't do show and tell. Start pulling stuff up to show off in your camera. Look at this. It's distracting.
Yeah.
It's distracting to the audience. It's distracting to the person talking.
Yeah.
Because we're all looking at the screen. I said, don't do that. And fucking Keith did it. And another person, I don't want to say his name because I love him. I love this guy. He did it. And then we had another idiot that was on the show who was talking over everybody and kept interrupting everybody. I couldn't get a word in edgewise with this guy. I love him, but Danny is who I'm talking about. So Danny and this other person, I won't say the name of, really fucked up, man. And I got so upset, I left for a minute and I had to cool down because I didn't want to yell on the show. And then I messaged Martine. I said, end the show now. And I jumped back in there. Show ended, and I just went off. I said words like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? That you're doing that show and tell shit while somebody's talking. That is so disrespectful to other people. I know you don't think of that, but it is. And that's why I keep telling people, please don't do that on the show. If you're going to do show and tell, we'll schedule it. But don't do it while other people are talking. Yeah. And then I went off on Danny, and I'm like, God damn, Danny, shut the fuck up. Let other people respond. Don't keep stomping all over them, just trouncing upon them, not letting them get a word in edgewise. I said, and also stop being high when you're doing a show because you're half a moron when you do that, because you start making an argument that other people in the audience are like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What has that got to do with anything? And he would do that, and I hit a point where now a lot of people don't come to join us on our Friday show. Stephen still does. I never yelled at Stephen.
Yeah,
Steve's a good guy.
Well,
Steve's a good guy. He's my beef with Stephen is he's too quiet sometimes.
Well, that's the thing I was raised not to interrupt people.
My daddy beat me not to talk.
And then believe me, there would be times every once in a while where my dad would go, "Shut the fuck up! I didn't say anything. But shut up anyway."
Yeah.
That's just how he was. But yeah,
that was just in case if that smack was just in case if you did say something.
Yeah, yeah, there was that sometimes too. But the thing was, not only that, but it's not my show; it's yours. So it's like you hold the day, you come up with the topics and whatnot. But then the other thing is, there are some people, and the two of you are one of them. If I'm on a show with you, I want to hear what you guys want to say because it's going to be 10,000 times more interesting than
Well, I love
anything
the
I'm
way
going
you
to come
do it
up
though on the
with.
show,
You
because
know.
here's what he does on the show. I'll look over and I'll just suddenly see there's two new messages in private chat. Hey guys, before you end the show, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
He does it. He does it.
Because
Uh,
we did this. This happened the other day. What he's talking about, and on
yeah, because I had what's his name
the
on there?
Saturday, yeah,
Kevin
Kevin
Major
Major
Howard,
Howard, yeah,
the guy from
from
not Platoon,
Full
Full
Metal
Metal
Jacket.
Jacket and Alien
Yeah,
Nation was on. He was our guest. Love the
mhm.
guy. God, I love that guy.
Yeah,
What a
great
cool
guy.
dude.
Yeah, really cool guy. And I was so into. I want to hear this guy tell his story. He did one of the greatest, fucking movies of all time, and worked with
And he
one of
worked with
the best
Stanley Kubrick.
directors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I want to hear him speak. I want to interrupt him. Let him go. I might not have this chance again. So when we were starting to wrap it up, I did get to throw in a couple of questions there at the end, but it was just I'd rather just listen to this guy talk because it's like write down everything this man
He was
says.
a very
You
good
know?
guest, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed having him on. And I know we were supposed to talk more about Alien Nation, but I've got him. And Full Metal Jacket is, and I said it during the show. I said
Yeah.
Platoon is a very anti-soldier film, whereas Full Metal Jacket is anti-war, anti-military, but pro-soldier. And that was the big difference. And I'm not the only one who said that. Adam Baldwin said it.
Mhm.
Mm.
I remember before he quit Twitter, he wrote that. And that blew my mind. I'm like, thank you for saying that. Because even though my boss worked on Platoon and he tried to fix it, Oliver Stone is such a commie. He's such
Yes.
a communist
Yes.
that he cannot help but disparage American soldiers. If you aren't smoking pot, you are what's wrong with this country. And you can see that in the film. The pot smoking guys were all the cool guys. The bad guy in the story was in the beer drinking group. In fact, all the beer drinking guys were rednecks and problematic people.
Mhm.
Fucking Oliver Stone. Fuck that guy. I hate that guy. And he's a friend of my boss, but I don't like him. He knows I don't like him. Tom Hanks, I love Tom Hanks. And he's a big, Hollywood liberal. But the fact is he is so respectful and he's been there for my boss so many times. And I've had to work for him. Now I will tell you with him, this is true. This is a true story. I posted something while I was working for him on a movie. Still, it's in pre-production called "No Better Place to Die," based on the book of the same title, World War II, with the 82nd Airborne and what they did during D-Day. And I said, I made this joke, and the joke was, Tom Hanks can only play two different characters. He can either play Forrest Gump or Tom Hanks. Somebody read it to him, and they told me they reported back. We said it to him. Everybody laughed. He chuckled and just nodded his head. It's true. His eyebrows went up, and he nodded. Yep. It's true. Never said a word, but he gestured in a way that he confirmed. Yeah, whoever that guy is, he's right. He can only play two characters. And but I go back and I look at Philadelphia's, that movie he did with Denzel, and I'm like, actually, he did really good acting in that. He did a good job. But I just don't think he's all that great an actor. I think he's really good at playing Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is a likable, affable person. So he just plays himself. In fact, we're going to be talking about him coming up soon because we're going to be talking about a movie that was offered to him first. And then another actor, Steve Guttenberg, got the role for Police Academy.
Mhm.
Wow.
And Tom Hanks was the guy that they wanted. And fresh, because of the whole movie was Bachelor Party. But when you
Yes.
go back and you watch even Bachelor Party, you realize if they had hired Steve Guttenberg, it would have been even funnier.
Probably.
Because Steve Guttenberg can do the Bill Murray type personality, the whole that character.
Yeah.
He's just like it. Tom Hanks isn't. Tom Hanks is more frenetic, and he brings a different kind of energy to his characters. Oh, we just lost Steve.
Well, that's okay. We'll just keep it going.
We're trapped. We can't get out of here. We're
No,
trapped.
no, no, no. We've taken over. We've taken over, Gerry.
Well, I've made jokes about this, that I wanted to do a show where people couldn't leave and just it goes on for hours. It's like, we can't get out of here. We tried to exit. We're trapped.
Yeah.
We can't,
Oh, you're on camera. You could do that. I can't get out.
I'm trapped. I'm in
Yeah.
the box. But I've read something again. Gerry, do you believe in life or book experience? Look, knowledge is great.
Yeah.
I believe in knowledge, but experience
Why not both?
is. Look, I love it when a young person tries to spout off philosophy to me, and I'll look at them and I'll go, get back to me about a decade, and
Yeah.
let's see where your philosophy is. My philosophy was, because I fit into that category. It's not the years, it's the mileage. Because like people will look at all the shit that I've done, and they go, "God damn, dude, you've lived a life." I went, "Yeah, I wanted to live a life less ordinary. I wanted to do all these different things. I walked out on a job where I was the lead artist for a magazine. This was a dream job. My first big gig as an artist. And I got hired by a major national to international magazine. And there he is. He's back.
Welcome
I'm
back.
So they
Thanks for joining us tonight, Deleted Scenes.
Yeah. Wow, my own channel.
Right.
Great. God.
So I quit that job to join the army. And to this day, I've talked to Gerhardt and Laura Geschwapner, and they were my bosses at this magazine. And they treated me so well. They treated me so well. And they couldn't understand why I had to serve my country. They couldn't understand. They still don't, and they're conservative, but they just couldn't understand. Like, you were your career was just starting, and you quit to go do this. And I said, I needed it. I needed to get the shit kicked out of me. I needed to change my life. I needed to do these things, and the military gave me everything I needed right then and there to make those changes. And it caused me to break bad habits, because I tell people, I was always a nice guy. I've always been a nice guy, but I wasn't always a good person. And I was notorious for sleeping with married women. And the army beat that out of me. It gave me a better moral center. And I'm not going to say the army did that. The people that trained me and the guys that I served with and served under, they helped form me into a better person. And that's what I wanted from the military. I wanted to be a better person. And the army helped me be that. And that's why I've told all my kids. Now, only one of my kids served. I wanted my daughter to serve so bad. I went, come on, baby. You'd be the first girl in our family to serve. Didn't do it. So I called her a pussy and don't call her anymore. I'm just kidding. I love my baby.
Mikey did have a question for you in the chat here. Do you believe in life or book experience?
Yeah, that's the one I was
covered that while you were gone, dude.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so basically, my outlook is this.
Mr. Stealth. Okay.
When somebody starts spouting philosophy at me that doesn't know anything, that they've got no life experience, I tell them, look, man, I'm not telling you you don't have value. Your philosophy has no value to me because you have no experience to go with it. And the joke is, it's sort of like a virgin trying to describe sex to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can do it, but they don't really know. There's no practical application. Sort of like my beef I had with Catholic priests that were marriage counselors. I'm like, no, I don't like that idea. Now, psycho counselors, but not marriage counselors.
Yeah.
So, any other questions?
No, I was going to comment.
Go ahead.
I was going to comment on the Tom Hanks rocking it in Saving Private. I love Saving Private Ryan, but I'll tell you, the one that makes it that movie for me, and it's only one scene, is Harrison Young, the very last scene. The adult or the old man Private Ryan.
That looks like Matt Damon old.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know him from that movie, and I know him from House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And then he died. He fucking died.
Yeah.
But I had so many problems with that because structurally that is really dumb to open on Ryan, but not tell us it's Ryan,
Yeah.
and then cut to Normandy Beach. He wasn't at Normandy Beach. Why are we
Right.
going there? How would he remember that? So that pissed me off. That's bad storytelling. Steven Spielberg does shit like that. Uh, Dale knows every single complaint I have on that film because we've talked ad nauseum. And here's what I would say about that film. All the best scenes were directed by Dale Dye, my boss. He got no credit for it, but he directed all of the combat scenes. Every
Wow.
single combat scene, he directed it. Steven sat in his director's chair playing a version of Game Boy and planning out in his head Medal of Honor. And he told Dale, we're going to do this game. I want you to work with me on this. You're going to help us develop this thing. It's going to be a realistic World War II game, blah, blah, blah. And all inspired from the movie, what they were doing. But the beach scene, all the combat, that was all Dale Dye directing.
Maybe that's good delegation then. Get the person.
Well, my problem is Spielberg doesn't give him credit for it, and that pissed me off.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. A
but
good point.
When it comes down to it, all the stuff that Steven directed with the military stuff, he fucked things up.
Yeah.
Like one of the first things you learn in the military is never turn yourself into a silhouette. Don't ever walk on a ridge line. The first thing they show after they leave the beach is them walking up over a ridge line.
Yeah.
And every single vet, because I was with a bunch of us, we were just laughing. Oh my God.
And one thing that's kind of an interesting little editing bit. And I know what happened because it's in the script, or at least a version of it that I've read, is when they leave the beach, they leave in a Jeep. Yeah. And then right the next second, they're walking. And it's that silhouette shot. And
they should have showed them disembarking, but they don't. And it's just assumed. I don't like that. But here's the problems. They do the ridgeline thing. Next thing they do, they're walking through German-occupied France, speaking in full voice with each other, and they're walking close together. And that's a huge no-no. You need to be 15, 20 feet apart. And you walk in a broken wedge formation. And never talk full voice. And one of the things that they start bitching about in this scene, full voice, is you need to stop saluting the captain. You're going to get him shot by a sniper. And immediately, the first thing I point out is he's got fucking captain bars on his helmet. That makes a better target than a salute.
Yeah.
That's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And and these are all things that Dale had to deal with. And Spielberg would make the argument, this isn't real life. This is movies. This is film. And it's the argument that when a director does something that Dale says they shouldn't do, that's what they say. And he's like, all right, it's your movie, do your thing. And but Dale's seen some things that really happened. Like we interviewed him, and that aired last Monday was my interview with Dale, where Commander Cobra and I interviewed him. And Commander Cobra is amazing. He's a stunt pilot, but he still works for the DoD, and he's a hell of a pilot, both with fixed wing and with helicopters. The guy's badass. He worked on with Michael Bay with that cop one with Will Smith. What was it called? Bad Boys. He did the aerial stunts in the first film, and he's a good friend of mine. And he sat in with me, and we interviewed Dale together. It was a great interview. I love talking to Dale. He's like one of my favorite human beings, and that I have the blessed life to work for him is one of the most amazing things. I will carry that to my death as like on my tombstone. I'll say all this shit about me, and they'll go, "Oh, and I was the lead artist for Dale Dye." I was the only artist he would use. Almost 20 years I've been working for him. Tom Hanks still rocked it. Yes. Any other questions?
There were a couple of things that went back in the chat that I wanted to address here real quick. Like it says, some movies that Susan and I have seen recently, like Saw X, Expendables 4, John Wick 4, Meg 2, The Trench, used very little CGI, if any. I question that group of movies. If any, and everyone succeeded with us. Only Indy 5 was complex. And I'll be honest with you, because I've seen all of those movies except for Saw X, and
I'm going to tell you right now, John Wick 4 had a ton of CG in it, and that's what pissed me off.
there is.
It pulled me out of the movie. I loved all the way up through 3, loved them, and then John Wick 4 happened, and I'm like, I was so fucking annoyed at that movie. I could not enjoy it. Also, I saw another one here. By the way, when you spoke about Police Academy, I did meet
Oh, yeah.
G.W. Bailey. I did not know he was dead. I thought we still had him.
I
He
thought we
played
did too.
Sergeant.
Yeah.
It was Lieutenant Harris, not Sergeant. He was a lieutenant. And he was a very astute, kind, and funny gentleman. He's hilarious. He was one of my favorite parts of the original Short Circuit. He was one of the bad guys in that film. He does great with comical bad guys. But we're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff because I'm a big fan of the Police Academy film. Well, the first 3, after I watched them all, but I only really liked the first 3 films. They lost me after that. I only watched out of obligation because I'm a completionist. If you haven't figured that out, I think you already knew that. I'm watching shows that I hate, but I'm a completionist, so I have to finish them. I started the show, I have to finish it. Prime example, the new Magnum PI. I fucking hate the guy playing Thomas Magnum. I like him in other stuff. Don't like him as Thomas Magnum. I don't like the chick that plays Higgins. I hate their characters, but I love TC and Rick. I love the casting of those 2 characters, and they're the reason I watch. He is a great military man. A lot of people don't know this, that scar over his eye. He was shot during the battle at Way City, and sniper hit him in the head, and it blew out his eyeball. It hung out of his eye socket.
Jeez.
They had to put it back in. Still works. Proctor.
Yeah, Proctor was funny. Yeah.
My favorite character of all of them, other than Mahoney, my other favorite character is Hooks, because she would just crack me up.
Yes.
That first movie, like, I was just so killing you, motherfucker, and she just gets angry.
Don't move, turd bag.
She just cracked me up. I enjoy that film so much. Tackleberry is a great character.
Yeah.
I was sad. I actually got upset when he died. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Tackleberry. What? No. Because he was the first one to go.
Yeah.
There's a scene with him where they're at a shoot house. And if you don't know what a shoot house is, that's where you do live fire training in buildings. And I've been to them, done them, CQB, all that shit. And he's doing that scene. He's doing it too with the, and there's the shotgun. Remember the shotgun?
Right.
But he's the one paying. Everybody hits the dirt when he comes walking out, waving that gun around. Tackleberry doesn't. He just stands there looking. Why? Because he knows he never jacked any shell it. That gun is technically unloaded right now.
Yep.
And only if you really pay attention and know something about guns do you catch that.
Yeah.
And it was something I caught because I was raised about guns. I love being around guns. I love guns. But
Michael Winslow. Yeah.
Oh, in fact, his character was not in the original script. He was added because they saw him on TV and they're like, we got to write a character for him. And they created a whole character just for him.
Brilliant.
Right. There was another, not a question, but more of a statement. And this is a movie I do kind of want to ask you about, Gerry, because I know people who watch Hurt Locker who are like me, who didn't serve and weren't in country. You know, they find that movie entertaining, but I'm hearing that a lot of the guys who are actually there are like, that movie
I don't
was
know
complete bullshit from start to finish.
None of my veteran buddies like that movie. Not one. I hate that movie. I go with a lot of my veteran buddies see movies like that. We're laughing at that fucking movie. The reality is broken in one scene in particular where he's mouthing off to his I can't remember if the guy's a senior NCO or an officer, but it doesn't matter. Mouthing off to him, talking shit with him. And it's like, we're just sat there going, he's not gonna fucking smoke him. Like, That's like one of the greatest things about being in charge of other people. You can make them do shit, and to punish them, you can drop them and just fucking make them do push-ups till their arms stop working. Make them run. You fucking ruin their fucking day. And I've seen officers and NCOs do that shit. And it takes a really smart guy to outwit senior NCOs and officers, because I outwitted them all the time. And my guys that were in my squad, they wrote this on their helmet liner. It said, "I love my fearless squad leader," because those guys would try to dish it out with me, and I dish it right back to them because I'm smarter than most of the guys that were in charge of me. And they would try to pull some shit with me, and I'm like, I'm not falling for this shit. Fuck you. I wouldn't say those words. What I would do is I would use their own words against them and what they were saying. I think the funniest one was during basic training. By graduation, before I could graduate, every single person in our platoon had to do KP. My sergeant didn't want to send me over there because I was the squad leader, and I was always helping him with stuff. I became very friendly with my senior drill instructor. We were good friends. And so he just looked at me and says, "Look, Gerry, I have to do this. This is in private, not in front of anybody, because he would never do this in private. I mean, in front of people." He said, "Look, Gerry, I got to put you on KP. Every name has to be checked off. So I'm going to put you in charge of the milk station. Easiest job in the chow hall." All right. "I don't care. You can give me whatever job you want." He goes, "No, I don't want you getting worn out by those people, abused. So you're in charge of the milk station." So I get put in charge of the milk station. So I stood there at parade rest the whole time while I'm in front of, well, to the front left of the milk machine. And this other sergeant comes in there. I've never seen him before. I don't know who the fuck this guy is. He walks in, he goes, "Private," points at me with a knife hand. "Private." He says, "I need you to come with me and we're going to get," and I went, "I'm sorry, Joe Sergeant, I cannot leave my post unless I'm properly relieved." And he turned and looked at me like, "What?" And I used one of my general orders. I said, "I am guarding this milk against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I cannot leave my post unless I'm properly relieved." And he did this thing where he turned away from me, looked back, and then he looked back at me, and he just went, his head went back like that, and he just turned around and just walked away from me. And he pointed at another, said, "You come with me." And then he turned and looked back at me again, like he'd never dealt with anybody like me before. And clearly it fucked with his day.
See, that's the kind of reality that would work great in a movie, you know?
Oh, I've written it. If I don't ever get to do it as a film, I will, because I went to film school. I wanted to be a filmmaker. But then I made some films, and then I realized, oh my God, I hate fucking working with these people. These movie people. I had a fucking editor who was a fucking heroin junkie. He was very good at what he did, and he was a very enjoyable guy, but he liked to get high. And he was the most unreliable motherfucker on the planet because of it. And I wanted to punch him half the time. And I just hit a point where it's like, I'm just going to go make comic books so I can work with maybe one other person occasionally. Most of the time I work alone. And I don't have to deal with these complex fucking weird people. And that's why I like working in comics. And I still kind of want to work in film, and I still do. I work in movies, but I don't work in movies. I work here and telecommute to do my work. That way I don't have to work with these complex personalities. I just have to meet with them every once in a while. Teleconference. And like when I storyboarded Tom Hanks, Gary Sinise, Tom Hanks, and Dale Dye were all executive producers for No Better Place to Die. And I had to storyboard the entire film. And I had to do a lot of production art for this film. But I had one boss. Tom Hanks was one of my bosses. Gary Sinise was one of my bosses. But I only answered to Dale Dye. And that's the way I like it. I like having one person I answer to. I walked off of so many jobs. Like I quit the Scholastic job for IDW, where I was going to illustrate the Battle of Little Bighorn. I walked away from that job. I worked for 2 weeks on that project, and I went, I will not fucking work for a committee. This is ridiculous. It took us almost 3 weeks to finish one single page of artwork. Can't do that. I can't do that. I won't do that. I refuse. I'm too old for this shit. I also met Catherine Bigelow. Not a bad female director. No, she's not. I actually like her films. She's one who did Deep Impact. I love that movie. But that Hurt Locker is a dumb fucking movie. You don't go out of the green zone ever. The only time you do that is if you're going AWOL. We saw what happened there with that fucking asshole that took off and we sent guys out. Guys got killed trying to find that motherfucker.
Yeah.
And Obama and Biden fucking, man, that guy should have been convicted, convicted, and sent to Leavenworth for what he did. He endangered people's lives. Coward.
So Jeremy Renner was good in Locker.
I love Jeremy Renner. I love him. Anybody willing to do their own stunt and break both their wrists on the first?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because that's a great movie. Was it called Tag or whatever they called that one? Yeah. Fucking did that chair scene himself and broke his wrists, and he had to wear cast. I fucking love Jeremy Renner.
I am convinced Jeremy Renner cannot be killed.
Well, clearly.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he had that basically the snow version of a Hobie Cat almost kill him. The thing was like 2 tons.
Yeah.
Could have killed him. How it didn't kill him, I don't know. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
He stopped to help somebody. I mean, this guy's like
his
trying
nephew.
to be a real.
It was his nephew.
Was it? Okay. But it's like, my gosh, is this guy trying to be a real superhero for crying out loud, man?
He's just, I don't know, man. There's something about Jeremy Renner. And what's funny with Jeremy Renner is that I go all the way back to that European school trip movie he did. I've been a fan of his since that movie. That was back in 99, 2000, some shit like that. Mac, one of my best friends, he and I saw that and we're like, that guy, he's going someplace, man. There's just something about him. We like him. Who is messaging me? Keith messaged me. Let's see what Keith has to say. He says, stop hanging out with other white guys.
Right.
He didn't say
I know one thing, going back to Hurt Locker for a second, is when I saw it with my dad the first time. And I never knew exactly what he thought of it, because if he liked it, he's not necessarily going to say. If he thought it was bullshit, he's not necessarily always going to say. So the one thing that he said during that whole 2 hours was, "Tell me he at least got nominated." Talking about Runner, he said, "Tell me he at least got nominated." And yeah, he did. He did good, and that's all he said for 2 hours. So at least, my dad liked one thing about the movie, and it was Jeremy Renner's performance, I guess. But yeah, and that's the thing with me is that not having, served. I mean, I knew people who were in the military. I knew people who've been in combat. But the one thing that was always consistent is that they don't talk about it, being in combat, because I don't know if it's just you weren't there, you wouldn't understand if it's something like that. He always had to talk to other people, who had served, and I'd heard a couple of things later on, stuff that he had seen that people had told me about later on. And it's like, I kind of understand why he was so quiet about it, because it's like, how do you explain that level of carnage to a kid? I don't think you can, and it's just.
My daughter asked me, what did you do? You were served in the war, right, Dad? Well, yeah. What'd you do? I made people laugh mostly. I was just, I was with a unit, and part of my job was keeping up morale. And I said, I didn't see any combat. Not that I, was afraid of it or anything. I mean, we're all concerned about how we'll conduct ourselves in combat, but it just never happened. And, but I told her, I said, the closest thing to combat I ever had, you didn't have to show that right now, but I was going to show you the campaign. It's not, I haven't submitted it yet, so it's not approved. But this is
Okay.
the campaign so far. And I mentioned that the other artist that's working with me on is my buddy Richard Bonk from Marvel DC, and very good fucking artist. He just finished a book with Michael Barron. And Richard Bonk and I go back almost 20 years. We've been friends for a long time. And there, of course, there's my daughter and me. And that's a drawing I did of Vindicated. That's on the table, my drawing table. This is back when I used to actually do pen and ink work. I don't do it anymore. I do everything digital. Here's one of the alternate covers for the book. This is the first look. I've not shown this publicly to anybody, so you're getting it first. And
Here, let me-
my girlfriend was like, "Oh my God, that looks so cool." He goes, "What's happened to the mask?" I said, "He got a blast from probably a shotgun, and he survived it.
Hmm.
You know, it eventually disintegrated the mask because I just wanted to show its face through the mask. I just thought that would look cool. So that's what I did. Is I explained because you can see it's broken away, chipped away all the layers.
Mhm.
And then he's also been hit in the head, still alive. And this line right here is my nod to one of my favorite films, John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah.
You know, when he goes to open that gate and they're standing the bad guys are standing outside the gates, we may be trapped. So I said, it seems he's got these two European machine guns machine gun pistols aimed at him. He says, it seems I may be surrounded. And he's talking into the microphone. This is the little mention of the article from the Army Rangers gang members shootout. And there's some of the artwork if you want to look at it right here. This is a nod to my buddy Graham Nolan of Batman fame. He drew the Phantom. And I love the angle that he chose, and I stole it. I said, I'm stealing that for one of my own splash pages. Vindicated looking out over a building ledge. I love that angle. And here, you know, again, you'll see some stippling here, but the only hatching I use is for light and the clouds. Because one thing I remember living in Seattle was always cloudy. Page 2, walking down, and there's poor Gerry, Gary, because I hate that name. And this is the guy he's going to stick eventually with the knife. And he's preparing to torture him. And so he's heating up a blade on his combat knife, the commando knife. And then it's from the other chapter where he drops into a warehouse from the top of the building, works his way down the stairs to the area, and this is where they're manufacturing some meth. And he's going to take these guys out, but little does he see there's a guy in the pisser over here that comes out like, huh? And the guy blasts his prosthetic leg. That's the thing he's keeping secret, is not his identity, but the fact that he's doing all this shit on a prosthetic leg. And the guy shoots his his mechanical leg, and then he blows the guy away. And again, I show the violence, but I'm not gratuitous in the violence. And this leads to them hearing him, and they start moving towards him, firing a barrage at him. He ducks behind a wall, and then he throws a grenade, and the guy goes, shit. I like that moment, where it's like, oh, shit. And he says the line, go grenade bowling. That's from my sergeant. And he survives it, and then he turns, and when another dude is still there coming through the smoke, and he blasts him in the face and then finishes them off on the floor. And then you see him at the top of the building as the place goes up in flames. And that's all I wanted to show. I don't want to show too much.
Right.
But give people a general idea there is violence. And, right now, this is one of the campaigns I was talked into doing. I said, it's a good idea. You get all the things that are included in the above ones, plus you get to be drawn into the book. And I'm only offering 5 of those. But I'm very limited, and because this is going to be to the wire. basically, making sure that I'm able to meet everything that's required. But the book, I started this 10 years ago, and a bunch of shit. And I mentioned on there, it's like I had two major medical emergencies that really knocked me out. Plus, I was raising my daughter by myself, and I had to dedicate 6 years to her. And it was these were tough years where I was having trouble making money because during the Obama administration, I was struggling to make money. The minute Trump stepped in office, all of a sudden jobs started coming back, you know? And that's why I have a grudge against Obama, because he did nothing to fix the economy. He just let it stay stagnant, and it just never grew in any direction. Didn't get worse, it just stayed the same in a non-growth position. And the first people to go in industries is your creatives. Creatives are always the first to go. So I lost my job in 2009, and that's when I went to comic books, because it was the only way I could make money. And that plus freelancing for agencies. But some of those went under. They literally went out of business. And so I had to figure out, I had to be creative, because I'm raising a kid. How am I going to do this? I got no child support. I didn't want child support from that bitch. I wanted her out of our lives. And I believe it's a form of punishment that people do who have custody, that do that to the other parent. It's one thing if the parent wants to do it, but when you force a parent to pay like large amounts of child support, it's punishment. It's punitive. It's wrong. You chose to leave that person, right? If a woman leaves a man or a man leaves a woman, and they want that kid, this was a decision they made, a choice they made. So you should be forced to face it on your own. And it would be nice if the other parent wants to do it, but if they don't want to, they shouldn't be forced to do it. I think it's bullshit. It's part of the nanny state, the way states interfere with our lives like that. And some even worse, like Virginia is it's probably one of the worst deadbeat parent states, but they make the deadbeat parents there in Virginia, because what they do is if you're late, like if you're unemployed, can't pay your child support for any amount of time that you don't pay child support, they charge you interest like it's a loan. It's not a loan. And according to the state of Missouri, where I live now, they said that's illegal. We see that as illegal. You're creating something that doesn't exist. And so they create this thing where, and it's compounded interest. Like if all you owe is interest, that's all you owe, but you still owe on it, they keep adding on to it.
Yeah.
It's criminal what Virginia does. It's shameful. And they're not the only state that does it. And they create deadbeat parents because you can never get caught up, because it just keeps growing. You'll never pay it off. And they'll just keep going after you and trying to ruin your life. They put people in prison for it. They didn't commit a crime. They found a legal loophole to put debtors into prison. And we did away with that centuries ago. Debtors' prisons were outlawed in the 1700s, going into the 1800s here in the U.S. Well, the colonies. They still did that shit in the 1800s there in England. They didn't clean that shit up till the 1850s. But we didn't have it here. And you shouldn't be thrown in prison for debt. It's a civil case. So, it was a good title. And the title, Mike, by the way, came to me instantly. In fact, the whole story came to me driving from my apartment to the manager's office at a complex 2 city blocks away. I drove 2 city blocks there to pay my rent and drove back. By the time I got back, I had the entire story in my head. And the first person I called was Jeff Searcy from Wounded Warrior Project. He's one of the guys that used to be in charge over there. And we're still good friends. In fact, he wrote the afterword for the book about Vindicated and how impressed he was with this idea of turning a disabled veteran into a hero. And he refers to himself as enabled, not disabled, in the book. I'm not disabled, I'm enabled. Hey, Orville Nation's here.
Orville Nation and Jedi Bill have joined us.
PJ.
Yes.
Oh, Jedi Bill's here too. Look at that.
Yes.
What's up, guys? Any questions you got, man?
I do. Anything coming up for the channel? Anything? Any plans for the future for the channel?
We've got a bunch of stuff set up. If you go to our channel, you'll see there are already planned out Saturday shows that we plan to do. Tom and I just talked, and we're going to do Police Academy for our next show.
Mhm.
And it's just something we just did Oppenheimer, and that was a really good show. We got into the minutia with that because I started getting into the history because I'm a historian. I'm a great student of history because my father, he was an engineer and he was a professor of history, and he kidnapped me when I was little and fled from Arizona all the way to Virginia, which is a historic state. There's so much history there, and the town we lived in had battles there from the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. And I was taught so well that I eventually understood the wars were named incorrectly because the Revolutionary War was actually a civil war, and the Civil War was actually a Revolutionary War. It was a revolt. How was the Oppenheimer film? Dude, I'm going to tell you something. I don't think he is ever going to make a better movie. I think that is his opus, magnum opus.
Yeah.
It's got historical inaccuracies in it, but I understand now why it's there, because the entire poisoning the apple is a metaphor for everything that comes later. And I get it. I thought that was very clever. I like the movie. I really did. And I'm planning to watch it again. The problem is I only have 1080p right now. I want to get a 4K TV or monitor because I want to watch it in 4K. But I was impressed with the writing on it. I was impressed with the direction. I think it's one of his best films. I like Memento.
Yeah.
I like that serial killer movie he did with Al Pacino and Robin Williams.
Insomnia.
It was a remake of a Swedish film, and it's very good. I didn't like now Tenet. I liked, but my brain understands stuff like that.
Oh, we're the two.
Yeah, I like Tenet, but I understood why other people didn't. I get it. And I understand why it didn't do as well as he had wanted. But I like Christopher Nolan's first two Batman films, and I still kind of like the third one, but I have big problems with what he did and some of his choices that he made in the story. I thought were not well conceived. What was something else he did that I thought was really good? Do you remember anything else by Nolan? Oh, I don't like. Interstellar was one of those.
I wasn't a fan either.
I thought he went too far. Spielberg, I think, would have made a better film than him. Spielberg was originally going to make the film, and it ended up going to Christopher Nolan later. And I think Spielberg is better with those kinds of stories. But I'm going to go look. He did a movie back in the UK. Following, I think.
Following, good one.
I'm not a big fan of that one. Let's see. Let me pull up his film. Dunkirk. It was okay. I liked it. It wasn't great. I've seen better war films. Let's see. Oh my God, that's it. The Prestige. The Prestige is absolutely my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Not only do you have Batman in it, you've got Wolverine and you got Black Widow.
That's true.
What a great cast. The turn, the twist at the end.
Yeah.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. I love the science fiction aspect, the nightmarish science fiction aspect of it. Let's see. I didn't like him and his brother's script for Man of Steel and what's his name, Aqua Goldsman or whatever the fuck his name is. I really think they screwed the pooch on that one. I loved Henry Cavill, not the movie. Let's see. Get everything. I got his major films there. Yeah, that's it.
Inception's another one. I like.
Not a fan.
Well.
I'm not a fan. It was okay. My big thing with that is like everybody debating it. I'm like, what are you debating? It's clear what happened at the end if
It's
you pay
pretty
attention.
forward. Yeah.
That's not his totem.
No.
The top is not his totem.
That's
It's
the
his
part
wife's.
everybody forgets.
What's important is
His totem is the ring.
sorry, this hand. The
Yeah.
ring was on his hand in the final scene,
Yeah.
which means he's awake. He's not in the dream world.
Yeah.
Whenever he has the ring on, he's in the real world. When that ring isn't on, he's in the Inception stuff. I thought it was clever, visually interesting. I loved some of the shit they did in the film, but all in all, I wasn't in love with the story. I just didn't think that much of it. And it's what I refer to as a nifty movie. It's a concept film. Yeah, we need to end the show anyway. We've been on for almost
we're
2
about
hours.
to wrap it up. Yeah.
I'm already getting tired. I've been yawning, and I'm out of caffeine.
All right. Oh yeah. All right. Well, time to wrap this up. All right. I want to thank everybody who's joining us in the chat. Mikey Seuss 4, thank you very much. You were the plan C if I couldn't get your Troy back in here. Thank you for volunteering. Maybe some other night we can get you back in here. Jedi Bill, the Clue Channel, Das Wolfen. I got to get Das Wolfen back here, especially after Godzilla, because we get Godzilla this week. I'm very curious to see.
I'm so stoked about that movie.
I am.
Napoleon was terrible. I'm looking more forward to Godzilla.
Yeah.
We also had Orville Nation. I don't want to miss anybody. Let me move up through here real quick. Of course, Netters.
Netter was here. She's faded. Yeah.
Okay. Where's Netter? Where's that link for Netters? I never got it.
Oh, I did. I thought
it's in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no! Put it in the private chat.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't click on that link. I can click on the private chat.
All right, I think we covered everybody who said hello in the chat. And of course, there's always people lurking in the background on these shows. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to engage with the chat as long as you enjoyed the show. Hit the like, say hello in the comments, share out the stream, all that good stuff, because it helps the algorithm. And if you are, and sub to everybody, please. And oh, I pressed the wrong button. Here we are. All right.
I subbed on 2 channels to her channel.
Thanks so much, Gary.
And
I'll let her know that she'll appreciate it.
Right. All right. Troy, thank you very much for jumping in there at kind of the last minute.
No problem. You do so much for me. There's no way I'm going to leave you in a lurch, man.
Thanks. Any final words or thoughts? Anything coming up?
Well, if we can come back on after we launch, it'd be great, because I'll be able to show more and actually share the link.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be going on Midnight's Edge this week and on Nick Weiser's channel on Friday to promote the campaign. Hopefully more. I want to go on all the, our comic buddy channels like Loki and all that shit.
Right.
I want this to be successful. And the biggest expense is Richard Bonk drawing that 22-page story, the prologue. He's writing, I wrote the prologue, he's drawing it. So that's going to be fucking cool.
Neat. And thank you, Mikey. All right. Vindicated, folks. Stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. And stay tuned to, of course, Pop Culture Minefield. And, of course, catch up with Gerry on Loki's channel and Nick Weiser and all the upcoming appearances. Then, of course, there's TGIF. And,
yeah, Steven, you're always there on TGIF, and I love that.
Right. Are you still doing the thing coming up here in about a month or so? Where didn't I see that as a part of the lineup?
Oh, the thing.
The thing.
I thought you
You were
were
thinking,
asking,
what thing are you talking about?
what thing are you talking about? It's like, are you doing the hippo from Hanna-Barbera? You know, it's like, did you get that thing I sent you? Get that thing I sent you? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're talking about Willis. So yeah, we are going to be doing the thing eventually. I think it's going to be in January, and Tom and I are going to do that one.
Okay.
Because Tom's a big fan too, and we're going to talk.
Right.
We're going to do a deep dive on that one. We're going to get into the shit that with Rob Bottin, and like, why did he disappear? He's still alive, but he's left public life. He's like Bigfoot now. You get Rob Bottin sightings.
Wow.
298, right on.
I have trifocus, so I have to lift my head up like this to read which. Because right now it's a big blur.
It's a bummer getting old, isn't it?
Oh man, when I turned 40, literally overnight, it was like, it seemed like one day I was just like, I couldn't see anymore with my regular glasses. I'm like, why am I? And he says, well, it says you it appears you have presbyopia. I'm like, what is that? And he goes, you're getting old.
Yeah.
This is where it turns and you start aging and your eyes don't like you anymore. I'm like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah, that was the thing that happened to me when my dad went to get his glasses replaced, and I went with him, and the doctor was like, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Well, actually, I've been having this issue where I'm having to kind of."
You see the trifocals?
Yeah,
you can see the trifocals. There's this mid-range here is for looking at you, but I can't really read with it. If I want to read the fine print, I got to lift my head up and look through like that. Trifocals.
Like the thing
they try hard is what that's why they're called trifocals.
Right. And the thing that happened with me is that the doctor's like, "Do you have any questions?" So I'm saying, "Well, yeah, because I read a lot, and I'm having to do like a lot of telescoping, So it says, "Okay, why don't you look over on the chart and read the bottom line?" And I'm a RGFB 7, like, no. And he's like, no. And now that's now I got to wear reading glasses all the time because I'm trying to read, because I can't.
And
read.
I love it with your haircut. I tease you, like, because I do the same thing with me, because I look like an old lesbian. I look like, but you look like a grandma. I look like an old lesbian.
I look like a grandma now. Yeah.
But that's funny. I brought that up. I do need to mention this. I said this. I got called out the other day by a friend, and they said, you make a lot of gay jokes for somebody that's not gay. I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And I went, prove it. Prove I'm not gay.
Yeah.
And he laughed and he goes, I can't. I went, no, you can't. You have no idea if I have a hidden moment where I banged a guy or sucked his dick. You have no idea. There was that college period. No, I was always into women, but a few of them were a little mannish because they were like I liked dating athletes when I was younger. Oh my God, I love that. And a couple of them were just borderline, like it's almost like being with a dude.
But it's not. It almost, but it's not. It almost doesn't count.
It's like, wow. When I was 18 years old, and a buddy of mine, older guy, I worked with him in a bronze foundry. We did statues. It was real statuary, it was real artwork for New York City and Washington, D.C. We cast one of the legs for the Vietnam Memorial. We were one of the, what do you call it? The one main foundry couldn't do it all. So they sent some of the parts to be cast by other, and I worked at Wagner Metal Arts in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So real metal arts place. And he tells me that Vanessa Del Rio, does anybody remember her?
Yeah. From
porn days? He says, she's actually a dude. Have you ever seen her clitoris? It's a fucking penis. It freaked me out. Because then I noticed, I looked at it and went, holy shit, that thing gets engorged and it's huge. looks like a little penis sticking out of the end of the top end of her vagina. Man, I'm sorry. I've lived a crazy life with knowing so many crazy people.
There is something to that. When they work out and there's a lot of testosterone, things get bigger.
Yep. And she had a ginormous. Go look this up, man. Go to Pornhub or one of those websites and go look up Vanessa Del Rio and look at the size of
back in the
clitoris.
70s. Yeah, I remember.
She had a monster clit. It was like, holy shit. And he told me that he was the first person that told me that what's her name from Halloween was born with both genders.
I've heard that. Yeah, there's no way to.
He finally admitted to it. No, she finally copped to it.
Oh, did she? Okay.
Yeah. She says that she's a part of that community.
Huh.
And I was like, kudos to you for doing it, but at the same time, I don't know why you're doing it, because you really aren't part of that community. You were altered, surgically altered, as an infant, because Tony Curtis wanted a girl, so that's what happened, and that's why I don't think she's ever had any natural children, and it made sense. But yeah, she did finally cop to it later. But he told me that was back in 1983. He told me that way before the internet.
Yeah.
The interwebs.
Okay, I will be returning to the show next week for a new series I'm going to be doing called Did Anything That I Actually Thought Happened in the 80s Actually Fucking Happen? Because apparently fucking not. Anyway, okay. I'm going to be looking at Halloween in a whole new, different fucking way again. Anyway, it is time to start wrapping things. Yeah, I know. Mikey, these are the things that you learn when you are watching my channel at 2 a.m.
Well, these are things that I never wanted to learn that I learned. And I'm like, well, I will end. Let me end with this. I miss my dad. I love my dad. My dad he reminds me of the character William Shatner played in Shit My Dad Said, that TV show, and based off of a real guy and his dad. And my dad would say stuff like that. And here's one of my favorite moments with my dad. We're looking at some posters of Sophia Loren. And not Sophia Loren, I'm sorry, Raquel Welch. Welch. And one of them was from 1 million years BC.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad looked at that poster of her in that outfit with it glued to her breast so it wouldn't fall open. He looked at her and he said these exact words: "I would eat a mile of her shit just to see where that came from." I'm 14 and I'm like, what? What does that even mean? Ooh? But now I get it. I'm like, okay, I get it now. You're being figurative, not literal.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my last thing.
Oh, shit. All right. For the subs that I still have. No, I'm kidding. No. All right. Join me tomorrow night for mystery movie night at the Regal. I don't know what the movie is going to be, obviously, because it is a mystery movie. My guess is it's going to be the Von Erichs movie, The Iron Claw, but we'll see. And once that movie is over, I'm going to have an out of the theater review, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, Tuesday is live from Sparkwood and 21, where Troy and Netters are going to rejoin me along with Aged Boomer for episode 6 of Twin Peaks. We're closing in on the ending of season 1.
Season 1,
so, yeah.
It was only half a season.
It was, yeah.
I forgot to mention Military Monday is tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
We're going to be talking about another Dale Dye film. Is what's his name? Malik. Terrence Malick.
Thin Red Line.
The Thin Red Line, which I think is a piece of shit. But all the military stuff in it, I love. But the story and everything else was just fucking annoying. And then tomorrow night, I'm on with KGRA with Don on his show, Dark Matters, where I'm guest host. And that'll be over on KGRA app, or you can go to KGRA on Facebook. They're not on YouTube anymore. They are on Rumble. You can see them on Rumble too. And it's a good show. We're going to be, think we're going to be just talking about whatever we want to talk about. It's going to be one of those stream of conscious UFO shows. We're going to be talking about different things and stories. I'm wanting to talk about shit going on in Central America and South America right now. Because there's some crazy shit going on south of the border with UFOs. Crazy.
Right on. All right. Troy, what's on the agenda for your channel this week?
Well, you already said what I'm doing Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah, thanks for letting the cat out of the bag.
Jeez.
Feeling his thunder.
No, I mean, no, he's that show's doing great, and I'm so glad because I feel like we got some new people watching Twin Peaks, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Of course, I'll be hanging out with Thursday on Netter's Network, Thursday Things, talking with who's on Thursday Things?
Who's the guest for that? Yeah.
Mr. Londell's Groovy
right
Movies.
Yeah.
And of course, Friday, last call on my channel. Dr. Marissa Pay, calling in from California. She's got a morning talk show there. She bills herself as the Asian Oprah. I think she's selling herself short on that, but that's what she's going with. And we'll be talking with her, talking about her book, and talking about her morning show. So there you go.
All right.
Good enough. All right. All right. Well, once again, I want to thank everybody in the chat. I want to thank Gerry, Troy, Netter, everybody for showing up. Mikey for volunteering to come on if it was needed. Thanks again. And I just want to thank everybody for watching the show and continuing to support my channel. 273 subs and still going strong. So thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. And I'm going to close it with, I'm going to go out with my usual closing. Good night. Take care. Stay strong. Because this is how we win.